Welcome to Homestead Reptile. I don't just keep reptiles, but I've been a passionate aquarist for many, many years. So this is my journey into keeping a saltwater reef tank. So this is the first tank I set up. Then this is the second one where I moved those fish in. So this is a 15-gallon fluval. And I had originally 3 species of macroalgae. Now I just have 2. So I had the grape caulerpa, red dragon breath, and another species of caulerpa with the longer seaweed, like grassy stems. I forget the scientific name, but that species. So the longer stemmed caulerpa outcompeted the great caulerpa, so I only have 2 now. So I'm finding keeping the saltwater reef tank, I have some corals, I have some fish. It's a 15-gallon fluval flex, so it's not super big, so I can't keep a whole lot in there. It's very similar to keeping my freshwater planted tanks. I would say the macroalgae has a lot of similarities to normal plants. They're more expensive than your freshwater plants. They're more difficult to find, but they're very similar in their needs. They need certain supplementation. The lighting they need full spectrum plant lighting. And these corals I have in here are also growing on that full spectrum plant lighting. So with this fluval flex, I had to make some minor modifications into keeping it. So I'm using a wave maker. I had to add a wave maker to add more current, more movement for the corals to be happy. They were growing perfectly well on just the fluval flex lighting that came with the tank, but I decided I wanted to add a little extra light to give it a little more of an extra bump. Works really well. I'm using a Hagen plant light with a little bit more blue actinics in it, so I can turn the blue lighting setting on if I want to see any of my species of coral fluoresce. But I have a few species in here. So I have right here with my little pointer, that is a Kenya tree. Really easy species, great to grow, great for beginners. That is a cabbage leather coral. This one fluoresces green under actinic lighting. This is also a really easy species, difficult to kill. And that one right there next to the cabbage coral, that is a devil hand. And he's all sad and mopey because he's shedding his layer of nasty skin. And he'll puff back up again. Leather corals are known to do this. So in the back, you might not see it, I have a couple of different polyps. So I have a daisy polyp, they look kind of like, they look like daisies. And I have green star polyps. Over here, I have a couple of species of zoas and polys. So that's a big poly that fluoresces green. The one on that red rock, they fluoresce bright red with a little yellow center. Then I have another little sad coral who's also sloughing off his skin, is another leather coral. So he gets really big and puffy with really long tentacle extensions. He's just upset right now because he's sloughing off that layer of skin, and that's completely normal for leather corals in general to happen. It will last for a day or two, and then it will be gone, and then they look better than ever. So in keeping this aquarium, I'm finding it, as I said, it's as easy for me to keep the salt tank as it is to keep my freshwater tanks. And I was a little frightened to get into saltwater because I've always been told that it's really difficult, it's ridiculously expensive, you have to have all this special equipment, and it's like I had to have all this stuff, and it's like, oh, that's so much. And it's like, it's a little nerve-wracking, and there's certain aspects of saltwater keeping I don't like. It's like, I don't like the blue actinic lighting. It doesn't look good on certain species of coral. It makes your fish look not very good. And I like the green and the living aspect of plants. I didn't know there were any saltwater plants. I didn't think about macroalgae until I saw macroalgae in a sump. And I was like, can't you keep that in a display tank? Because I really like the way that looks. I want to keep a macroalgae reef tank. Is like, can corals live with macroalgae? Yeah, corals can live with macroalgae. It depends on the species. Soft corals do better. And I would go with really easy, hard to kill soft corals. Another aspect, so don't do it as I do. If you're really new into keeping aquariums in general, I've been keeping aquariums for at least 15, 16 years, since I was a little girl. Smaller bodies of water, and this is a small body of water, are more difficult to keep than large bodies of water. So normally if you're going to get started in the saltwater hobby or any hobby, normally they'll say if you're getting started in the saltwater hobby to get a 40-gallon and start your way there. So I did the opposite. It's like I don't want to keep another 40-gallon aquarium. It's like I want to keep something a little smaller. I like that square box of an aquarium because I've never kept one before, and I saw the Fluval 15. It's like, that's really nice. It has the plumbing made in, so I don't have to patch plumbing together. And it's like, why can't I make that into a salt tank? And I ended up doing it. It's been a year into the process, and it's been pretty successful. Now, I've had my hits or misses with certain species of coral that just didn't do well. For whatever reason, pulsing zinnia just died on me. Couldn't keep it. Couldn't keep it for the life of me. And I think I might have the answer why. I probably needed to add iodine to my tank, or the macroalgae were out competing it for nutrients, and so it just starved to death and died. This macroalgae has really been the secret to keeping a small body of water. It just eats up the nutrients like crazy. It grows really fast, it eats it up. It's been a major key component to keeping it as healthy of an ecosystem as it is. I have, for livestock, I have 2 clownfish. I have a blenny. I have 2 species of blenny. I have a pistol shrimp. I have a pistol goby. That's all the fish. Then I have various hermit crabs, bristleworms. I guess kind of count them as livestock, even though I didn't mean to put those in there. They just snuck in. But they're a part of the ecosystem, even though I don't like them. And stocking-wise, I can't add any more fish. It's fished out. So I'm going to be adding some more invertebrates later on. Get some more hermit crab to get some more interesting species, some more featherworms later down the road. But certain species of macroalgae are a little bit more finicky than others. So most caulerpas grow really fast, but they also die really fast if you change the conditions. Something changes, they'll go sexual on you and just disappear. Sometimes they come back, sometimes they don't. My grape caulerpa did that. So something happened in the system and it went sexual, and I thought it was gone forever. And then I added this other species of caulerpa, which has never gone sexual on me. And it just outcompeted the grape caulerpa when it did come back. And the grape caulerpa just never stood a chance. This stuff is super aggressive at growing. And just shaded it out and smothered it. This red algae grows really well, but it loves to be in the shadowy area, so it works really well with the grape caulerpa. Not grape caulerpa. This other species of caulerpa kind of shadows it a little bit to give it that shadow effect, so it's not stuck under the light. And this is the Hagen wave maker that I have. It's the Hager, sorry, ECO Slim Wave Maker. I love this thing. It's slim. It doesn't stick out too much. It has multiple settings on it. So it has a feed mode. You push the little F button and it will stop the wave maker for 10 minutes, then it will turn back on automatically. You can adjust the flow rate. You can adjust the wave type. So there's like 4 different wave types on here. So there's the classic wave, nutrient transfer wave, constant current, and random mode. And you can go to percentages of how much power you want to give to your wave maker. So it goes up to 40, 60, 80, and 100. And you can adjust it. Great wave maker. So I'm looking right here. So this is the Fluval remote for the lighting. And I kept the original lighting. Looking at my nitrites, and ammonia, it all looks good. I did the nitrites off screen. But the macroalgae really saves you some peace of mind when it comes to that ammonia spiking. I've never had the ammonia or the nitrates or nitrites spike at all, which is surprising. But this macroalgae is just so aggressive at eating any waste, and I don't feed very heavily, and it's not as aggressively stocked. Some people might say I have too many fish in here, but it's working for this system. But macroalgae needs to be fed, so they can't just live off of the fish waste itself. There are certain things your fish aren't going to provide in large enough quantities or zero quantities when it comes to your nutrition and your macroalgae. You're also going to have to cut back macroalgae. Every once in a while, get in there with a pair of scissors and just cut away at it. Also, when I was getting into keeping saltwater tanks, I found out that there are really toxic species of coral, and that kind of freaked me out a little bit, like the zoas and the polys. And you hear those crazy stories about polytoxin poisoning. It's like, oh no, I'm going to die if I touch these things. But come to also find out it's a little hyped up. Unless you're going to cut them up and put them in your wounds or rub them on your eyes or boil them in water or eat them, you're not likely to die. You just have to be careful. And this one supplement that you really need for your macroalgae aquarium is iron. So I use the Flourish iron. I got it off of Amazon. It's an important supplement. Now, you don't need a lot of it, but it is important for your aquarium. And your corals can also use a little bit of that iron. So it's great for that. Something else you really need is this macroalgae nutrition fertilizer by Windy City Aquarium. So this is just a supplement that has potassium, potassium nitrate, potassium sulfate, magnesium sulfate, and manopausis, whatever other sulfate. But it's an additive that I just put in a little bit as a macro nutrient. So that's also important. You're also going to need, when you get into these aquariums, it's a really good idea to have iodine on hand. So I'm finding my corals really appreciate it, but not just for the corals. I have invertebrates, and it really helps that shedding and molting process. You don't need a lot of it. You just need a little bit of it, and this iodine will last me forever for this system. I also use it in my freshwater for my freshwater invertebrates. I find it's great to use, and this is just the iodine from Fluval. Works really well. And what I have up here are the Sea Lab blocks NO28. So this just has these micronutrients. It says it has like 28 macronutrients that slowly dissolve in your water. I've been using these the whole time I've had this aquarium. I was watching someone else do a review on them. It's like, that's relatively cheap, and I'm getting it, and it works pretty well. Something else you're going to need, you're getting your coral, so you need this Reef Prime shot coral conditioner. So this is just a coral dip. So if you're really concerned about pests, which I was mildly concerned about them, you want to get that. And you're starting up, you want this beneficial bacteria, this startup stuff. So I've used it. It works pretty well. I've had to move this aquarium with me to another house, and I just added a little bit more of this bacteria in it. It's just a helpful boost. It's something to have on hand. It works well enough. But this journey in keeping a saltwater reef for a year has been really successful. I've had my ups and downs with it. I've killed a few corals. They're just a new thing for me, but it's a kind of an otherworldly ecosystem compared to a freshwater. The fish are a lot more odd. The invertebrates is what really impressed me, how crazy the invertebrates are, how crazy the plants are, and of course, every new saltwater keeper keep clownfish. And I wasn't inspired to keep clownfish because of Finding Nemo. I actually just love clownfish because I used to watch a ton of sea and nature documentaries, and they would always show like different species of clownfish and their anemones, feeding the anemones, protecting the anemones, or bringing a coconut over to put next to the anemone so they can lay eggs in it and just hang out by their anemone. Now that's something I would love to get later down the road, maybe doing research into them, and I like the rock flowers because they don't move too much, but I would prefer a bubble tip. But I think I might have to just size up this aquarium. Maybe go to the Fluval 30. But it's been a great experience. If you're new to saltwater keeping like I was, but I'm not new to freshwater keeping, I've been doing it again for a very long time, just try it. A lot of people will say it's really difficult or it's super expensive. This was a budget aquarium for me. I paid, so I got it on sale for, I think, $59 from a PetSmart. It was like a really good clearance sale. I was like, I'll get that and I'll try it out. The macroalgae, some of it, the tall green color I got for, I think, $10. This red dragon breath, I think I got it from a local aquarium store that was attached to the rock that said they'd give it to me for free. They didn't like the stuff. So sometimes you can get lucky and find a local fish store that doesn't care for macroalgae, and you can just get it for free or for a really low price. Do a little bit of macro hunting, and that's what's really fun, because macroalgae are a little difficult to find, and they're an unappreciated side to the saltwater keeping world, and I just love them. I also like the corals. It's a different aspect to it as well.